God bless you, loved ones. Welcome to the Word with Chester. I do thank God for you. I appreciate you for being here with all of the ministries on the World Wide Web. When you take of your valuable time and spend it with me, it touches my heart, and I want you to know how much I appreciate it. Today we will begin study in the 20th chapter of the book of Numbers. I look forward to a great study today. This won't be a long study. We're building up to something. God is building up to something, and I want you to be present, if at all possible, on the next few sessions. I encourage you to stay with this ministry. If you do, you will have read completely through this Bible, verse by verse and chapter by chapter. Those of you that are just now catching on, you can go to our archives. Go to my website, www.poemsbychester.com, and click on where it says the Word with Chester. You can go all the way back to the beginning if you have the time, and listen to what we have already taught in our archives, and catch on to the day. Now that would take you some time. To be honest with you, we have near 900 sessions that have already been taught. We started in April of 2011 with this ministry, teaching through the Bible. We went completely through the New Testament. Now we're in the Old Testament, and making our way through it very rapidly. I encourage you to stay with us and watch God bless you. Well, we will begin from verse 1, chapter 20 in the book of Numbers. The Bible reads, "Then came the children of Israel, even the whole congregation, into the desert of Zin in the first month, and the people abode in Kadesh. And Miriam died there and was buried there." Who is Miriam? Those of you that are Bible scholars, I know that you already know. But Marian and Aaron and Moses, they were brothers and sisters. They were from in one family. And I do want you to understand the importance of Marian. She played a key role and did things that we've already talked about in our last passages. But here, you have to understand at this point in the journey of the children of Israel, many of the ones that started out from Egypt had already died, and they were getting up in age. And we're going to talk about that further as we study through the next few chapters. But it's important for you to know who she was. She was Moses' sister. So at this time, there in Kadesh, Miriam died there and was buried there. Now let's read on. "And there was no water for the congregation, and they gathered themselves together against Moses and against Aaron." Well, they always would gather themselves together against Moses but when things got difficult. And I can understand you sending a delegation to talk to somebody about your trouble, and you want to talk to them and see what's what. But when you gather yourself against somebody, that means you plotting up against them. I'll read verse 2 and 3 again. "And there was no water for the congregation, and they gathered themselves against Moses and against Aaron. And the people strove with Moses." Well, when you say strove with them, it wasn't just a light thing. They strove. It wasn't just a little conversation, but they strove with Moses and spoke, saying, "Would God that we had died when our brethren died before the Lord. And why have ye brought up the congregation of the Lord into this wilderness, that we and our cattle should die there?" Can you understand? And I can understand the heart of Moses. He obeying God, doing what God would tell him to do, and leading such a vast congregation to where God was leading him. And you have to understand the point by point way God was leading Moses. And the people many times didn't understand, but instead of them just not understanding and sitting down and reasoning and talking about it, they would rise up against Moses and Aaron, and many times they would threaten to stone them or threaten to kill them. But let's read in verse 5. And wherefore have ye made us to come up out of Egypt, to bring us into this evil place? It is no place of seed, or of figs, or of vines, or pomegranates, neither is there any water to drink. And Moses and Aaron went from the presence of the assembly into the door of the tabernacle of the congregation, and they fell upon their faces, and the glory of the Lord appeared unto them. Can you understand? God led them every step of the way. God led Moses. He was with Moses, and he was with Aaron. You got to understand, Aaron the priest, but Moses, God spoke to so vividly, so many times. He also spoke to Aaron. Here, when the congregation of Israel came out against them, they went in the congregation and fell down before the Lord. And you got to understand, that's a key thing. That's what we all should do when we get in trouble, is find a place to fall down before the Lord, and don't let no one tell you that you're not supposed to pray. You are supposed to pray. Well, you got to get the picture, and don't let nobody stop you from praying. And somebody say, well, how often do you pray? How long do you pray? Let me hear you pray, and all that kind of stuff. You need to communicate with God, and He will talk to you and lead you how you need to communicate with Him. And don't let nobody tell you you shouldn't. I am not anti-prayer. I'm pro-prayer. I think you should be praying, but you need to communicate with God and talk to Him, especially when things are not going right. Now, I'll read 6 again, and then we'll continue. And Moses and Aaron went from the presence of the assembly of the door of the congregation, the door of the tabernacle of the congregation, and they fell upon their faces, and the glory of the Lord appeared unto them. Verse 7, and the Lord spoke unto Moses, saying, take the rod, and gather thou the assembly together, and thou and Aaron thy brother, and speak ye unto the rock before their eyes, and it shall give forth water, and thou shalt bring forth to them water out of the rock. So thou shalt give the congregation and their beasts to drink. Well, how awesome. God told them what to do. Now let's read verse 9. Key points here now. And Moses took the rod from before the Lord, and as he commanded him, and Moses and Aaron together, let me read it. And Moses and Aaron gathered the congregation together before the rock, and he said unto them, hear now, ye rebels, must we fetch you water out of this rock? Well, can you see what he's saying? He asked them a question. Here, rebels. God didn't tell him to say all of that, but he said it. Here, rebels, must we fetch water out of this rock? Question mark. Verse 11. And Moses lifted up his hands, and with his rod he smote the rock twice. With the rod he hit the rock twice. God did not tell him to hit the rock. He told him to speak to the rock. And the water came out abundantly, and the congregation drank, and their beasts also. Well, this was a great miracle. You got to understand, water came forth out of a rock. Now, can you understand? Out of a rock, water came forth enough to feed so many people, to quench the thirst of so many people and quench the thirst of all of their animals. Can you see the great miracle there? But let's read on. In verse 12, and the Lord spoke unto Moses and Aaron, because ye believe me not, to sanctify me in the eyes of the children of Israel. Therefore ye shall not bring this congregation into the land which I have given them. Well, can you understand the anger of Moses? Moses was had led these people down every step of the way, all the way out of Egypt. He heard them complain. Every time you turn around, they were complaining. Every time you turn around, they were striving with him. And Moses, out of his anger, called the children of Israel rebels and did more than what God had told him to do. He hit the rock twice. with the rod instead of just speaking to the rock. And this is why the Lord spoke to Moses and Aaron and saying, because ye believe me not to sanctify me in the eyes of the children of Israel, therefore ye shall not bring this congregation into the land which I have given them. And someone say, well, God, that's hard on Moses. After everything Moses has went through, you're not going to let him go in. But this is the word of the Lord, because you did not sanctify me in the eyes of the children of Israel. Therefore ye shall not bring this congregation to the land which I have given them. Now let's read in verse 13. Now, this is the water of Meribah, because the children of Israel strove with the Lord, and he was sanctified in them. They strove in the Lord, and the Lord was sanctified in them. He showed himself and worked a great miracle through Moses, but yet you got to understand, and I sympathize with Moses, and we're going to explain this farther as we read through the Bible. I sympathize with Moses greatly, but I also know the heart of God, and I know the heart of Moses. I feel like I do. Why? Because God dealt with him so mightily, and God had a work for him to do, and he led the children of Israel every inch of the way, every step of the way. And you got to understand, and I'm going to explain it further. I don't want to infringe upon a future message, but Moses, at this time, God told him, you won't lead them in. You won't lead them into the land which I giveth them. Why? Why? Because you didn't sanctify me. In other words, do exactly what I told you to do in this incident. Now, verse 13, this is the water of Meribah, because the children of Israel strove with the Lord. They strove with the Lord, and he was sanctified in them. They strove with the Lord, and sometimes we think we're struggling and striving with a person. If that person has God's Spirit in him, you're actually striving with God, because God is leading him, and you strive with him. You're striving with God. Let's read a couple of more verses. Now, verse 14 reads, now this is we yet talking about years of wandering, years of them wandering in the wilderness, well, let's just read on. And Moses sent messengers from Kadesh unto the king of Edom. Thus saith thy brother Israel, thou knowest all the travail that had befallen us. Well, he's letting them know. He sent a message down to the king of Edom here. You know everything that has befallen us along this way. Now, verse 15, how our fathers went down into Egypt, and we have dwelt in Egypt all a long time, and the Egyptians vexed us, and our fathers. He's given a history of what happened to them all the way back before they went into Egypt. They went into Egypt and get the complete picture. They went into Egypt. They went in under peaceable terms, and after being there for years, over 400 years, things got bitter and they wasn't treated right. Moses just laying all of this out to the king of Edom because he wanted to do something. And we're going to talk about it in verse 16. And when we cried unto the Lord, he heard our voice and sent an angel who hath brought us forth out of Egypt. And behold, we are in Kadesh, a city of the uttermost of thy borders. He's getting ready to make a request to this king, and we're going to talk about it in our next lesson. But here he's giving a preface to the king. You got to understand, when you send messages down, you don't just say, look, we want to do this, but you send a message down, and you preface your message with all of the things that has happened and what brought you to this point, and then ask him the question. We're going to get that question in our next session. I encourage you to be here. Well, I want you to know that I love you, my friends. I love you with the love of the Lord. If you would like to contact me for any reason, even if you have a question about our subject matter or about this ministry or the direction we are going, and believe it or not, we do have a bright future, and God is doing great things and will do greater things through us in the time to come. If you have questions for us, please, you can write me at the Word with Chester Ministries, Post Office Box 200603, San Antonio, Texas 78220. You can also reach me at my website, www.poemsbychester.com. Remember, all of the things that we do, we have a book out for sale and we have music out for sale. Go to iTunes, TuneCore, Amazon. Just key in my name, Chester L. Figures Sr. It'll bring up my work. When you purchase our music and when you purchase our book, you are a blessing to this ministry. I encourage you to help us, and God will bless you. Remember, I love you, my friends. I love you with the love of the Lord. God bless you.